Hey guys, Strike here, and welcome back to Middle-earth Shadow of War. Now, just a quick heads up, this is actually a post-commentary. I have never done one of these before, to my memory. This is because I did start recording Shadow Wars. I did 2 or 3 episodes of them, and then, if I'm being totally honest, became extremely bored. Unfortunately, it turns out that Shadow Wars is literally just 20 sieges going around the different locations with no story involved, and it's just not my kind of thing. Sieges were quite disappointing for me, if I'm being totally honest. I only enjoyed a couple of them, and then I realized they were sort of all the same thing. So I am literally just watching back the footage in my edit, and I'm just talking over it. I don't really know what I'm going to be doing here. I don't know what to say. I don't want to start my review now because it's not there. Now, basically, the reason to do Shadow Wars is you will basically just get a single cutscene at the end of the 20 sieges, and the sieges just get progressively harder, but there wasn't anything too insane, you know. It was just time-consuming and grindy as opposed to challenging. There is a very big difference there. I'm sorry if I sound very negative right now. I mean, I probably do, but it's just really, I don't really know what to say. I wanted to just include this to show you what it kind of is. This is very early on. This is one of the faster sieges in the game because obviously they're always kind of low level. It turns out the max level is 60, by the way, which is kind of confusing to me. It's a bit of a random level to shove as your level cap. Let me just quickly take a drink. And yeah, I don't want to be too negative, I really don't, because I did very much enjoy this game. I think it's a great premise, I think Nemesis is awesome, but it's a very shit way to end your game, Monolith. I don't know why you've done it like this. Like, it could have been done in so much of a better way, and they just didn't wrap up the story properly. Like, even the final cutscene, I don't want to spoil anything, obviously, but there's so much that left untied up. I guess that would be done in DLC, but some of it's just, I don't like when DLC is used as a way to fix things I mean, obviously that's a good way to do it, like, but if it's accidentally there, like, if they've done it accidentally and there's not enough in the game accidentally, but this is quite clearly done just to have DLC. They knew, there was no way they thought that could have been a satisfying end to the game. I don't know, I really did enjoy this game. I think it's great. It's not making it into my top 10 of the year, though. I'm just going to throw that right out there. I did have a lot of fun with it, though. I thought it was much better in its first half than the second. Maybe about 2/3 in, it started to get stagnant. Mission types started to go wrong. I don't want to start the review here. I always do a post-game review if you're new here. Like when the credits are rolling. I don't want to do that now, but it's sort of hard not to. I don't really know what to say about this. I'm just like watching it back. It's just the same thing we did so many times in the main game. Like, we've already captured these forts. It's no different, it's just defense. And it's the same every time. Like, if the siege battles were, okay, let's say each fort is different, distinct. Obviously they look different, even though not a huge amount, to be honest. Like, the game worlds look different, it's just the forts themselves sort of look kind of similar. But either way, that's not what I'm here to talk about. If they made it possible to, like, interact with things in the environment, use like an RTS type of thing, like a tower defense type thing even, set up very customizable defenses instead of being able to choose from 3 things with each war chief. That just wasn't really a good way to do it, in my opinion. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the first siege of Shadow Wars. This might actually be the second. I think this is the second siege. I don't know what happened to the first one. So yeah, we're going to use the second siege of Shadow Wars, and we're going to use the final siege of Shadow Wars, or at least part of it. I don't think I ended up getting it all on recording because I ran out of disk space or something fucking stupid. And we're just going to compare those two, and then I'll give you the cutscene, and then I will cry myself to sleep because I had to sit through. I grinded this out over like 3 days. 3 entire days I sat here doing all the sieges because I had to level up my guys, because in some places I barely visited in ages and definitely didn't use all of my war chiefs, so they were all pathetically low level that were going to get slaughtered as soon as I started a siege. So I went in and like leveled them all up. It took me a good, okay, how many hours do I have on the game? Give me a second, let me just go check Steam real quick. I currently have 63 hours in this game. Kind of embarrassing, I know. But how do you check activity? I'll tell you how much of it was this week. This goddamn week. I haven't done any recordings. This is the first recording in a while. on Shadow of War, because obviously it is. I didn't want to just, you know, I'm not going to sit through all of that shit. So yeah, hold on. That's all finished in the background. Let's go ahead and pause this post-recording, and I will put in the next clip. Oh yeah! I have recorded, what have we got here? Okay, so just starting up the final siege. That's the final one. You can see everyone's about level 60 or something, like around mid-50s. Some of them are up to 60, some of them are over 60. Those are the ones you can't actually capture. I have played this game for 28.5 hours in the last 2 weeks. Because it's 2 weeks, some of that might be recording, I don't know, but still, I'd say a good 20 hours at least were over the last 3 days, just grinding out this bullshit Shadow Wars. And wish I could get my life back, but hey, I'm bringing you guys this content, and it's just really depressing, because they had so much potential here. They built on Shadow of Mordor, which is such a good concept. They did, obviously, there's so many improvements for Shadow of Mordor, don't get me wrong, but they could have done so much better. It's such a shame. Such a shame. So as you can see, this is just basically Shadow Wars. I'm not sure if I even want to include all this. It's just nothing different from the first clip. So you know what? I'm going to skip straight to the final cutscene. I don't want to keep talking over this, reminding myself of the trauma I've been through. That is the end of the final siege. What am I going to get for spending so much of my life on this? What exactly kind of perfect, beautiful end to the game are we going to get? We're going to get some awesome gameplay. We're going to get a badass boss fight with like Celebrimbor or something, even though Celebrimbor is now trapped in that eye or something. I don't really know. That was a bit stupid. Yeah. What could possibly happen? Talion's kept everything at bay for the last billion years.
Talion held
and we
back
get this
the forces of darkness for decades. But the Dark Lord's ring had a will of its own.
It is over. Together, we will turn towards Middle-earth.
Talion finally fell and joined the Nine. In the years that followed, the One Ring was found. The newest of the Nazgul traveled with his brothers to the Shire in pursuit of the new Ring-bearer. And then, after decades of war, darkness gave way to light. A new fellowship. And an unlikely hero. Death came. Death to Sauron. Death to his dominion. And death to Talion, who walked out of darkness and found freedom.
That's right, everyone. After 30 grueling hours of Shadow Wars, or however long it wasn't 30 hours, but you know, you get a cutscene that basically, when boiled right down to it, yeah, Talion just gave up. You know, you do all that work, you put in all that work, you grind for all that time. Yeah, Talion just gave up. He don't care. Whatever. He's done. I guess it had to happen, but at least let him be defeated in a battle that you get to play, or something fun. But no, you just get this pathetic cutscene, and it was so frustrating. I was actually going to record the final siege, like, at the time, but I was just so burnt out because I'd spent the entire day just grinding and grinding and grinding. I was like, fuck it, I'll do it tomorrow. I don't want to be totally negative. I had so much fun with this game. It's such an amazing concept. Why couldn't they deliver right? It's so frustrating. I loved this game. I really did. Really enjoyed it. I have to say, up until about the 2/3 point, I was having so much fun. Towards the end, it seemed like it was picking up. The mission types got slightly less basic. They got slightly less repetitive. But then, nope, the game suddenly ends in a bad final mission that had no build-up whatsoever. I actually wrote out points, because I always do a post-game review. If you're new here, I do a post-game review while the credits are rolling. And that is definitely something I want to do for this game, but because I usually do it like, if I do it, I'll do it while the credits are actually rolling, obviously not in post, while editing, but since I couldn't do that this time, I've actually wrote out a list of things, because usually I'd just be able to remember it because I literally just played the game. I've managed to write out, wow, that's embarrassing, I've wrote out 666 words, I am the goddamn devil. Where to start though? I don't want to sound too negative. I've wrote a lot of negative things about this game, but it doesn't... I don't hate this game. It might sound like I do. I really don't. I really enjoyed it. I'm just disappointed. Which I guess is a breeding ground for negativity. So, if you're a big fan of this game and don't want to hear some pretty scathing things said about it, your time to leave, my friend. Okay. I'm going to start with the gameplay thing. It's a very disorganized thing I wrote. It was just things that came to mind and I just wrote them in bullet points and shit. So I'm going to start with the difficulty, which was a very, actually, this was a big problem I had throughout the game. Either everything was hilariously easy. I played on normal difficulty. Many times in the game I wanted to bump it up to Nemesis, but as I say that, as I was thinking that, then the game would throw a stupidly annoying boss at me, like a really powerful orc or something, that isn't hard. He won't kill you, but he'll take so frustratingly long to kill in a really boring way. That's the issue here. About halfway through the game, all orcs, or most captains, will have immunities. Now that's okay, but it's usually, turns out, that they will have immunities to all but one or two things. And vulnerabilities to like maybe one thing, which is obviously meant to be like, oh yeah, let's make them think outside of the box. They can't kill enemies in the exact same way all the time, but it did the total opposite. Because it's not fun. Like, let's say a enemy is immune to most things, but he's vulnerable to stealth. That means you go in, you stab him in the back, you hide for a little bit, you stab him in the back again, you run away, stab him in the back. It's until he dies, or he's weak enough to capture. He has no way of killing you. He won't kill you, because Talion's so fast, he can run away from practically every situation. The dodging mechanic means you can't take damage, pretty much. I've died about 3 or 4 times in this game. Which leads me on to another issue. The Nemesis system does not work on normal difficulty. It works, but not great, because... Okay, how do I want to say this? I don't want to sound like a dick. I consider myself a very average gamer. I'm not great, I'm not bad. Like, skill level wise. But I barely died. Barely died. Died maybe 3 or 4 times, which means Nemesises won't come back. Unless you run away, or you die, you have a very, very little chance of an orc you killed coming back. Which means I had the most boring nemesises that would last about, like, a very short amount of time before I cut off their head and they wouldn't return because I hadn't interacted with them enough. So, the Nemesis system just didn't function, and then there's that counter issue that I didn't want to bump out to a higher difficulty so it would happen more often because of those frustratingly long fights that aren't hard, they're not challenging, but they're time consuming. The difficulty did not balance, they did not understand the difference between hard and frustrating. That is an issue I have here, and there is actually a mid-credit scene that I don't want to talk over. It's very nice coming up. I'm really happy that they did this. I don't want to, you know, spoil it, but it's not story-based. It is about, you'll see. But I'm just glad this was no longer hidden behind DLC. I'm glad they did all their donations. I'm glad they stuck to what they said. Enjoy. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was a really, really nice memorial. R.I.P. to Michael David Forgy. Forgy? I wish I encountered Forthog. I don't know how you encounter him. Maybe we should do that in like a post-LP type thing. I feel a little bit bad saying negative things about the game now after I just witnessed that again. First time I saw it, it gave me goosebumps. It was really damn sad. But I have to continue my review. Okay. Well, I'm really glad they did that. I'm glad he wasn't hidden away in bad DLC where it's like, hey, pay £5, we'll keep half the money and give the rest to his family. They just did donate directly. It wasn't DLC anymore. Hats off to you for that, Monolith or Warner Brothers, whoever actually did that. I assume it was Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers are the ones who made him implement all the microtransactions and shit. Monolith didn't actually want to do that, so still, well done, Monolith. Okay, where do I want to go from here? Let's talk about the story. Let's talk about the story. First half, awesome. I was really hyped to see what was going on. I really wanted to know what was going to happen, and then the Palantir happens, and the story falls flat. Now, it might have been a little bit after that. I don't know, the story just seemed to stop going anywhere. Midway through all the shit with Baranor, I think. When Castamir died, that was a bit shit. It just sort of died. The story sort of stopped developing then. No, it would have been a bit after that. That seems too early. I don't know. I think it took me a while to realize that the story had gone shit after I'd done it. I assumed it was going to pick back up. It took me a while to realize it wasn't going to pick back up. But the story was just a bit disappointing. No story beats really paid off. Like, what happened to, for example, we save Ranger. Ranger's like, ooh, you're a bad man, Talion. I like it. And then, right back, we never hear from him again. We don't really know what happened to Karnan. What even is Karnan? Like, to be fair, I didn't read any of the in-game lore entries, so that might have helped with that. But that's not an excuse for having lackluster story in the game. Lore doesn't make up for a shit story. Nothing, I don't really remember anything. Oh, fuck off, Skype call. There aren't really any memorable story segments that just jump out. There's nothing I'll remember in a few years or so that I do with many of my favorite games. So that's disappointing. I don't want to hang around that too much because, I mean, to be fair, they did what they can with a very limited area. They didn't have much space to move around. I've heard that they've actually sort of trashed some of Lord of the Rings' existing lore to make this. Like, people were alive in places where they literally couldn't have been alive, shit like that. Like, times were all fucked up, but hey, I guess they had to make some kind of, they had to work with what they had, and, I know that would annoy die-hard Lord of the Rings Lord of the Rings fans. I don't know much about Lord of the Rings. I read The Hobbit, all that. I'm not all the way in. I haven't even read the Lord of the Rings books. Only The Hobbit. So don't kill me, please. Oh yeah, about the story. The twists sucked. Like the ending twists where it's like, ooh, look at this, Celebrimbor. Celebrimbor is going to betray you. Look how much Eltariel hates Celebrimbor, everybody. Look, she doesn't like him because he's a bad man. Oh, look, she's now working with Celebrimbor after 2 seconds of convincing. It's terrible. That was awful. The twist was all the characters go against their morals for some reason very quickly. Like, Talion's now fucking corpses and all that shit, raising them from the dead. It's like, he literally just killed Zog and was like, oh, that's so disgusting. How could he do that? That's the worst possible thing a person can do. And he's just like instantly, yeah, okay, we're going to do that for no apparent reason in this tiny last bit of the game where it really won't matter but will ruin everyone's deaths. That was shameful. That was a really bad twist. I guess story isn't really the focus of this game though. Like, the gameplay, quite very good. I enjoyed the fighting mechanics. I thought they were very good. Maybe not deep enough. There was I don't know. We'll talk about that later. Let's stay in story for now. Is there anything else I want to talk about in the story? I don't know. I guess mission types comes under story, maybe. Mission design, I'm going to go with. Because they just become the same thing over and over. Like, especially with the I'll use an example, what should we say? Let's go with the Nazguls. Helm Hammer Hand. Fight him once. He escapes. Fight him 2 times in another really disappointing fight where he's meant to be this ultimate badass. Absolutely nothing cool happens, and now he's dead. Next Nazgul. Take him on once. He escapes, etc, etc. It's just like this 1-2 punch where nothing really interesting happened. Also, how many people called Wang worked on this game? That's impressive. Okay, anyway. All the Wangs in the world, that has redeemed this game for me. What the hell am I talking about? Okay, and I don't know, I just really didn't like the mission design. That's what I was praising it for at the start of the game. I was like, wow, every mission feels different. All these different people you go to missions to, none of the missions felt the same. And then they did. Which is Shadow of Mordor's problem. All the missions were just the same thing in the end. It was really disappointing. And I don't want to rag on this game as much as I am, because I did enjoy it. I just wish I did like a review halfway through where I could have been praising it, and then this one where I'm just pissing all over it. But did not enjoy the mission design. The end game especially, just 20 sieges. It focused too much of the game on a weak point. Like, the first siege is really cool. It feels like you're there. It feels like, oh, look at my orcs marching into battle. They've all got their own things to say. And then eventually they don't have their own things to say. And you're just charging into battle over and over again into fortresses that don't function any differently from the other fortresses. All the same thing, all of the same customization. Like, if you could have traps and you could lay exactly where the traps are going to be. You can position your troops when you're defending. Stuff like that. That would have been cool. Like a tower defense type thing, yet you're still playing the game. Oh, what can I compare that to? There's a game that does that. I can't remember what game that is. Oh well, there's a game that does that. Comparing it to that game right now, that's what I'm talking about. If anyone knows that game, please tell me, because that was a really good game and I want to play that again. I forgot what it is. Anyway, Shadow Wars sucked. Siege's weak point of the game, in my opinion, especially when you're doing 20 of them in a row and it's just mind-numbingly boring for that terrible payoff at the end. And it's like, especially when every captain has to have his speech that's about 20 seconds long. Another thing about Shadow Wars, it exposes... Okay, one thing I loved about this game, up until Shadow Wars, is the wide, diverse range of orcs, like, never run into the same guy twice, and all that kind of thing. There's so many different people, and I know there are orcs that I haven't run into yet, different personalities of orcs, but Shadow Wars exposes that they are limited. Yeah, when I was doing Shadow Wars, I saw... Who did I see? There was one specific guy. He kept saying the same thing. I saw the same type of orc show up at least 6 times. I saw him for the first time in Shadow Wars. And then he showed up saying the exact same thing 6 different times. And it was just... It was the worst. Like, it really exposed... It just exposed that it isn't magical. Like, it seemed... That sounds so gay. But, you know, that everything has limitations. It seemed like there were an unlimited array of orcs with tons of personality, and then it just exposes that they are limited. It was just disappointing. I really, really wish they capitalized on sieges better. Like, it was just the same thing. It's like, control point, control point, control point, fight a big man. There you go. And it was just the same every time. If it could have been different, just environmental things, like maybe you can plant a trap in a building, and if they run past the building collapses on them. Shit, I don't know. That's a bad example, but game designers, you should know how to do this properly. I should talk about the Nemesis system, shouldn't I? I mean, I've already told you it's amazing. It's such a concept, and if Nemesis gets used in either a sequel, I don't know how they'd do that, considering, well, Talion's dead now, isn't he? But, I mean, if they did, like, a similar type game, or if they did a spin-off, maybe play as, I don't know, Eltariel, even though I think that's going to be the DLC. But if you play as someone else like that, and you control an army of orcs, the Nemesis system would be amazing. Or even if it's implemented into another game. Like, it's such a good concept, but it hasn't been executed perfectly yet. And when it is, it will be incredible. But it needs to work so very closely and with difficulty, and it just didn't manage that in this. And it's disappointing, but hey, it can be great. It can be really awesome. But it wasn't here. The open world, let's go into that. How was the open world? Every single location, so what did you have? You had Minas, became Minas Morgul, and it was Minas Ithil. Even those two seemed so different when it changed from Ithil to Morgul. There was Cirthan Gol, there was Nurnen, Gorgoroth, and Saragost. Everyone was so distinct, it was great. Really, really distinct. Loved it. No two areas looked the same. Very diverse, until we got into the fortresses, but hey, we've already talked about that enough. Yeah, really enjoyed the diversity. It was really nice. Especially, I remember stepping into Gorgoroth for the first time, seeing that mountain, seeing the volcano. I was just like, hell freaking yes, that's so cool. So yeah, that was all cool. It was very interesting having like 5 different hubs that you fast travel to, as opposed to having a perfectly connected world. I guess that's to do with loading times and... Oh, I forgot to mention a thing in Nemesis. I wish Nemesises could carry themselves across, follow you between locations. Having 5 different Nemesises is really annoying. And you don't interact with them enough, unless you stay in the same place for like a year, and it's just, you don't do that. There's no reason to stay in the same place for that long. It gets old. So, the Nemesises just don't really do anything. They get boring. I wish they could traverse between places as well as you. They could follow you, they could ambush you and shit like that, but... No, that's another fault in the Nemesis system, but it is an honestly great concept. I really hope they do something good with it. I know it was good, it was definitely great here. I'm sure if you play on a high enough difficulty and you can look past the frustrating fights, I'm sure it's amazing, but I did not experience it here. What else do I want to say about the open world? It was weird having those 5 different hubs. It worked though. I enjoyed it. I didn't mind fast traveling every now and then. Not really much to say. It was impressive. It was pretty big in scope, but not anything to scream about. The art style was very good. I really liked all the different variations of orc armor, or the detail in the orc. Although the buildings looked cool, but there were muddy textures every now and then for no reason. Like, I don't know. I was playing on Ultra, and it just looked a bit like an aging game, and it came out this year. I don't really know why. Like, there was a HD texture pack, but I've heard obviously this was HD, but there's an extra texture pack. I think it's 4K maybe. But apparently it doesn't really change much from what I've heard. I don't know, it could be wrong, but I've listened to 2 reviews before doing my own, and that they've both said the same thing, that they've used it, so I'm not gonna disagree. What else do we want to talk about? I usually just sort of go down in order of like graphics, soundtrack, gameplay, but I'm not really doing that here. What can I talk about? Yeah. No. So there are many ways to approach a situation in this game. Definitely, undoubtedly, you can do all this stuff, but it becomes useless halfway through the game because orcs are just always immune to a lot of things at that point. It just means combat can be very monotonous. As I said before, endless stealth attacks. The guy dies in 10 minutes eventually. Combat itself is very fun, I think. It could have been deeper, but it's a very nice Batman. I always compare it to Arkham, but I guess that's the only game that really does it very similar. Very Arkham-style combat, probably because it's Warner Bros. Publishing. But it was good. It was good. It's not the best combat in a game like this ever, but I mean it worked. The executions, I love the animations, but obviously there's only so many times you can see the same things. At the start of the game they're very impressive. By the end of the game they're sort of just things you get used to. You don't see like the same execution more than 5 times. It's still like whoa, but I guess that's to be expected. What else? I guess characters that died, you never really cared. Like, for example, when Castamere, I guess we'll go, was raised from the dead, and he was brought back, and I was like, oh no, that's awful, poor Castamere. And then you just kill him and he's gone. It's like, okay, great. That was worth bringing him back for. Hey, remember that character from 10 hours ago? Yeah, here he is. Oh, he's dead. Okay. And they could have done so much more with it. Like, they could have made it emotional, but literally just didn't happen. Not really sure why. Maybe because Talion is kind of one-dimensional. Now, obviously, voiced by Troy Baker, definitely not his fault. He just seemed to lack... I blame the writing. Some of the dialogue was a bit clunky. Seemed very basic. He was just sort of a generic hero. Like, ugh, I'm angry, but I need to do the good things. So, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to rag on that too much, because obviously you can't make him a too fully fledged character when they're working in such a tight space. Then again, I guess that would have been a way around their limited things. Just have a really interesting character, but they didn't have that. Ooh, yes, the use of the orcs from Shadow of Mordor that you could bring in. You could bring in your ultimate nemesis, and you could bring in your best follower. The Nemesis was definitely used better than the follower, but you only fought him twice. I would have loved to get him on my team. He was very powerful, even for being like... I think I fought him for the second time when he was level 19 and I was level 30, late 30s, and he still kicked my ass. He was so powerful. If he was implemented in the story, like maybe it doesn't matter who he is, just give him a generic voice. Just implement them in the story. That would have been so cool. And the follower that was carried over, he was even more disappointing. He was just sort of tied up once, just save his life, and then you can just have him as a follower. Didn't really even give him a personality, to be honest. Didn't even carry over his voice from Shadow of Mordor, I noticed, but whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the game improves so much on Shadow of Mordor, but it's still just foundations. This feels like a first game in a series, like, regardless of story. Like, discounting story, this feels like the first game of a series. It feels like they've got the foundations and they can build on it very, very well, but the trouble is, this series seems to be ending. I don't know what to say. This is such a great concept. It needs to be used well. Boss fights were a big issue in Shadow of Mordor. This game rectified that slightly. I enjoyed the... that's a lie. I was gonna say I enjoyed the fight with the Balrog, but I enjoyed the one where Kanan was involved. She was involved. I enjoyed the one where we were Kanan as a Graug, taking on the Balrog. The second one kind of sucked. He just sort of, oh yeah, fly around in a dragon, burn him, hit him in the same way 5 times. It's like, oh, whatever. Kind of boring. Zog's boss fight sucked. Sauron's boss fight was very generic. Just no interesting boss fights, to be honest. Like, Zog, who was such a big bad in the game, died piss easily. Obviously, that's maybe because I didn't put it up on a bit higher difficulty, but he would have just been time-consuming. He was already time-consuming. He was easy. He was just so boring to fight, and that's the issue there. But oh well. Ooh, microtransactions. Not my favourite things in the world, but props to the developers and the publishers. They were totally optional. I had some very good orcs without ever buying a chest. So, yeah, I have no problem with those microtransactions. If you want them there, you can use them, but there practically isn't a reason to. Plus, you can get some pretty down... Oh god, apparently I skipped the credits. I assumed the review would be done by then, apparently. Well, I guess we'll just have a black screen going. Hold up. I can work on that later. Oh, and the multiplayer was quite fun. I ended up playing the multiplayer just to ease my mind mid-endless Shadow Wars, which was weird because it was just the same sieges but online. It was just kind of cool getting my rank up, and it gave me an achievement, so why the hell not? It was alright, and luckily, if you're attacked in multiplayer, they made it so that your orcs can't be killed permanently unless you're the attacker. Like, if someone's attacking you, it doesn't matter, your orcs will live. They won't die permanently. Like, they can die in other people's games, obviously, but they won't die in yours. I don't know if they added that when they got all the backlash about, oh shit, get loot boxes, or, you know, or your orcs are gonna die because they're not good enough because they didn't come from a loot box, but I don't know what they did. But yeah, the multiplayer was decent, loot boxes were optional. I'm okay with that. Soundtrack did its job, I guess. There aren't any standout, memorable times where I was like, hell yeah, this music is hyping me up so much. There was nothing really like that. But it was okay. No standout, memorable tracks that I remember. Like, there's... I don't know. Some games do. Like, obviously, you got the Skyrim themes. You got so many songs in Skyrim and shit like that. I'm comparing it to Skyrim just because it's another RPG. Is this game even an RPG? It had RPG elements. I very rarely even use them. Like, the gems, I think I only ever put in one level 1 gem. That was weird. Oh well. Yeah, soundtrack was okay. Graphics, I've already kind of talked about, so we'll skip over that. What else is there to talk about? Oh, yeah, another issue I had. Beasts. Beasts in the game. So you have... Spiders don't really count, they always died in one hit. Caragors, Graugs, and Drakes. Caragors, they were kind of weak anyway, as long as you used their weakness. I mean, I guess that makes sense, but, I mean, there came a point where about halfway through the game, every orc has either a perk where they instantly kill an enemy that attacks them, or if they attack them, the beast, sorry. A beast that attacks them, they will instantly kill them, or they just do enough damage to kill the beast anyway in like 2 hits. Like, no matter what they were, like, I'd ride a Drake into battle, thinking it would be really cool. The Drake gets shot out of the sky, first hit it takes. And I had, like, the tougher Drake. I had, like, the Iron Scales skill, or whatever the hell that's called. Yeah, that did not help at all. So, yeah, I wish beasts scaled, or if you got, like, tougher types of beasts. Like, you had the Dire Caragor, you had the Dire Graug, you had Elemental Drakes, I think they were, but nothing really changed them very much, still kind of useless in the last part of the game, which sucked, because I would have really enjoyed some more mounted combat. Ooh, you know what? There was a minigame, pit fights. I very much enjoyed pit fights. The amount of time I spent in pit fights is probably kind of embarrassing, just like leveling up your orcs, and if someone kills your orc, you get a better orc, because they killed them, and you can just take control of them. All that. It was a very, like, engaging part of the game. I'm glad they introduced online pit fights. Don't know how much I'll use it because it's kind of gambling with your orcs, and I kind of like my orcs at this point. Or at least they're powerful. I'm not like in love with them. I would not put my penis in an orc, I think. How does orc sex work? Anyway, yeah, although minigames probably shouldn't be one of the most enthralling parts of a game. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's good to have a good minigame, but it shouldn't outshine, like, they were just such cinematic fights, which the actual combat wasn't. So I guess, I don't know, I guess I just I love the way the animations look. The animations in this game are very, very nice. Motion capture was awesome, I guess. So well done for that. The animations are fantastic, at least for the most part. Obviously there's like clipping in certain areas, sometimes like an animation will make an orc put their hand through their face. But, hey, whatever. Talking of orcs didn't really interact with you enough. Like, I wish captains you captured or encountered, like even as Nemesis, would interact in the story. Like, even if it's just like base things that will happen all the time, like you'll always get an orc do this in the story. Wish it could be a guy you've met at random, and like you've just set it up for all those different personalities. I don't know how hard that would be, but I think that would be very cool. What else? I wish they had more interaction with Talion. Like, you don't ever really talk to them. Like, yeah, maybe you'll hear them in battle, like, have a battle cry, but you'll never, like, actually talk to them. It'd be awesome if you could, like, sit down, like, talk to them, make them do certain things, train them or something. I don't know, just have them do more things, and after around 3 or 4 hours of gameplay, you've probably seen all the situations that can happen with an orc. Like, I don't know, you've got ambush, you've got someone coming in and saving your life, you've got blood brother revenge, you've got all that, and then that's about it. Nothing really, you've seen them all in about 3 to 4 hours. Like, yeah, it's cool at first, but then sometimes it just gets frustrating. You just see the same thing happening over and over and over. I really don't want you to get me wrong. I adored this game. I had a lot of fun playing it. I'm glad I did a Let's Play of it. I hope you guys enjoyed it too, and I don't want you to think I'm just shitting on it. But it just became stagnant halfway through. Much like the first game, it seems like it's a bit unfinished. It seems like they had time constraints, so they had to wrap up, so they made the missions a bit repetitive towards the end. They're just like, oh yeah, let's copy-paste. Story seems a little bit, you know, rushed. Gameplay seems like there was gonna be more added to it. It seems a bit, not bare bones, it's quite fleshed out, but not as fleshed out as you'd think it would be. It just seems like it was rushed to release a little bit. I don't know. I want to end it there, but there's a few more things I want to talk about. Set pieces, I don't know if you guys know that. What I mean by that, I don't know if that's just a term I use. There were a few exciting set pieces, like when, like, in the end thing, despite the ending having no build-up, there was a very cool thing where you had, like, a huge army on a bridge, and you were like, let's take that Mordor, and they, like, did a panning shot. That was very cool. I like things like that, but there were a few of those, few exciting things, and obviously the Balrog fight when you're, like, beating the shit out of him with a growl. That was a pretty big, awesome spectacle, but other than that, everything just seemed like a bit of a basic fight. It was usually just fighting a few... Missions were like, okay, go here, fight an orc. Okay, fight many orcs, but they're not as powerful. And it's like when we were introduced to Nazgul, it was just like, okay, fight 12 Nazgul. It wasn't very cool. There was no big introduction to them. Yeah, I don't know. The lore was great, from what I've heard. Lots of collectibles, each with their own little stories involved. That was very cool. Like, it would be read out to you. That was very awesome. Much better than the last game's collectibles, especially with, like, Shelob's memories, which would give you an insight to how she ties into the story more, which was weird. I don't know why Shelob wasn't really used after Act 1. Like, obviously she comes back at the end and she's like, there's a spider in your body, Talion. It seemed like she was going to be a much bigger part of the game, which again leads me to believe that the story was a bit rushed, because she is your death screen. Like, it seems like much more was meant to be done with her. And I found the Eclidin quite interesting, with, like, the Bright Lord stuff hidden behind the doors, and you had to do the poem. I found that quite cool. That was interesting. Got old after, like, number 3 or 4, but I guess collectibles do. Customization was quite cool, like, thinking about the Bright Lord set and all that. Like, there were many different things. Unfortunately, I didn't get a huge amount of time to customize. Well, I did, obviously. I didn't use it a huge amount, though, is what I mean, because I sort of got the Vengeance set very early on that had set bonuses that I really liked. And I couldn't find a set that I liked more, so I sort of just stuck with the Vengeance set for you know, a very good portion of the game, so I don't know, I'm probably not the best person to talk about customization, but it looked cool, although it didn't seem to affect cutscenes. Like, Talion would always be wearing his base gear in cutscenes, don't really know why. Surely it would have been pretty easy to code that in, but whatever. The skill tree is packed with skills, quite daunting at first. You'd think that quite a daunting amount of skills. You're like, holy shit, I need to fill out that. But it's quite smooth how the progression system. And they all add different ways to approach a situation, which I like very much. Although, yeah, I don't really have anything bad to say about the skills. They were just a bit lackluster for some reason. And lastly, I guess the performance of the game is pretty damn good. Like, I didn't have any crashes. I don't know why I left this to the last. It's quite a boring point. I had like 2 crashes in the entire game, and it was off camera, so I'm okay with that. And it ran very well. I've got quite a high-end PC. I got like a 1070, GTX 1070, and a pretty good processor. It's only a few years old. Blah, 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 blah. Ran good. Anyway, I guess that's where we're going to end it. Should I give it like a rating out of 10? I think last time, I gave Shadow of Mordor a 7 out of 10. The game was shaping up to be a 9 or an 8. But its disappointing ending gave it a 7. Now, since this is pretty much a better game than Shadow of Mordor in so many aspects, you'd think it'd get a higher rating. But it's just the fact that it was just a disappointment. Like, they were meant to build on the things more than it, but I did love it so much more than Shadow of Mordor at the start. Oh, I wish I could have done like a midway review to take into account here, because I've sort of forgotten how much I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. I really did enjoy the first few stages of the game. You know what? Final verdict, I'm going to give it a 7.5. So much potential here. I wish they'd capitalize on it. I really hope this isn't the end of the series, or at least the end of the concept. I really hope Nemesis gets used somewhere else. or in a sequel. So I guess that's it. I hope you join me for the next Let's Play. I'm going to be starting episode 3 of Life is Strange Before the Storm today. That's what I'm going to be doing after I finish this review. So, hope you guys enjoyed. I definitely did. I know it might sound like I didn't because I had some pretty scathing things to say about this game, but I did enjoy the game. I'm just a bit disappointed. But anyway, see you guys for the DLC, hopefully. I'm really excited for that. And in the next LP, make sure you go check out my channel, see what you like, see what you want to watch. I'm sure there'll be something for everyone, except probably not, because I still haven't played that many games in the 3 years I've been on YouTube at this point on this channel. Oh well. 5 years? 4 years? Jesus Christ, I'm terrified. Okay. This is Strike signing off. Goodbye.